touch count is something that goes on behind the scenes on your iOS device, and it's a way that it keeps track of how many fingers are touching its screen at any given time. And through Playmaker and Unity, we can get access to that number and then do various things with it. So let's start with a super easy example and just get that number and display it. Here we've got get touch count. Get touch count. And once again, it's in device. Get touch count right there. That's how you bring it in. And it's pretty easy. All it has for options is where you want to store it. This is an integer, and I'm putting in touch count, which is a global variable I've set up. And you can do it every frame or just do it once as you pass through. And that's all there is to it. It just gets this number for you, and then you can go do something else with it. So I have set up a count display gizmo here. Let's take a peek at that. And all I do is sit here on count touches. So it runs at the startup. It just runs once. I'm not doing it every frame. And I'm checking that touch count variable. And I have 6 different switches set up here in my int switch. And I'm checking for 0 through 5 as a value. And if any of those values is true, meaning if there's no touches or if there's 3 touches, 4 touches, etc., then it flows into one of these states. So for example, at 1 touch, it displays this simple texture, just a 1 in a circle that I've set up. So it'll draw that texture on the screen and wait using an int changed and check the touch count variable again to see if it's changed value at all. And so it runs that every frame and checks for changes to it. And if it has, then it flows back into the count touches, which was this first one. So basically, all this does is checks that variable non-stop to see if it's different than it was last frame. And if it is, it recalculates what texture it should display, and as such tells us how many fingers are touching the screen. Let's take a peek at that. So here's the app running on our iPad. And you can see 0 because we have 0 touches right now. If I touch the screen once, we get a 1, back to 0. And it's pretty responsive. It knows if I touch it with 3 fingers, 2, 4, or all 5. And it rotates through those as I click around. Let's build on that example a little bit by adding something somewhat functional in kind of a multi-finger activity sort of way. I'm going to make this cube rotate along its 3 axes based upon how many fingers are touching. We've got the same get touch count right here, still putting it in the same global variable, just like before. But this time I've added a second FSM for rotate. And let's go ahead and zoom in on that. I'm still doing the old count touches trick. And this side note may be the most inappropriate name for a vampire in all of history. This time I've changed the touch count check to just 4 switches. We're checking for 0, 1, 2, and 3, because I only want to know what's going on with 3 fingers at a time. And 0 will do nothing except wait and count how many touches there are and look to recount if the touch count variable changes, just like the last example. But this time, for 1, 2, and 3, I've put in a rotate. So it's going to rotate that cube, which is the owner that it's placed on. And if 1 finger is touching, we're going to rotate the Y angle at 25. If 2 fingers are touching, we're going to rotate Y at 25 and X at 35. And if 3 fingers are touching, we're going to do 25, 35, and 45, add in the Z angle. That's all there is to it. I'm just counting how many fingers like before, but this time I'm applying an action to an object, which in this case is this cube. Let's take a look at that running on the iPad. Here's our trusty cube running on our trusty iPad, and it's in the stop state. 1 touch moves us to rotate 1, and back out, we move to the stop state. So that seems to be working well. It doesn't matter which finger I use. 2 touches gives us the rotate 2, in and out of that, and 3 touches moves us into the rotate 3 state. So we can move around between these states, and remember, it's just counting touches. It's not tracking specific fingers. So I can move or lift or do any sort of thing along these lines with these 3 fingers, and it's just counting how many they are. I can use a thumb and a little finger and this one. All still works fine.